Well, hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Ultimate Wellness Group Transformation Tuesday. I thank you all for coming in this evening and spending some of your Tuesday evening with us. You could have chosen to do many other things, but to spend some time here is a blessing and I consider it an honor. We're going to have a wonderful show this evening. We are going to have a conversation. We're still on the mental health month, right? We're actually doing mental health this month and next month. And we are in the middle of reading a couple of books. So for those who may not be a part of the book club, still time for you to get in. You have to do a little catching up, but we definitely would love to have you have your addition to the wonderful conversations and the posts that we are having people do based on their reading. So let's go ahead and get started. In the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful, I bear witness there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. I further bear witness that God came in the person of Master Father Muhammad. He taught one from among us. Of course, that wonderful man who still is being put into movies and still being put into public discourse. And a lot of his greatness and a lot of what he brought to our society isn't being discussed in a truthful manner. But regardless, he has produced a tree of beautiful, powerful men. And one of those men being the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. In their names, I greet you in the words of peace of Assalamu alaikum. Again, for anybody that is hearing that for the first time, saying Assalamu alaikum means I pray that you have peace. In a time like we're living in, of course, we all could use some peace and all could have a benefit from having some increase in peace in our lives, right? And so that's just a way that I start off my show and ask for God to guide my thoughts, guide my mind, guide my words so that I may be his vessel. And I also pray that my ego and arrogance is removed so I may be a vessel of your benefit. Aid Electronics. Thank you, my brother. Peace and power to you, bro. Walaikum salam. Excuse me. So I wanted to start off again today discussing briefly my mental health healing, right? My wife and my family's mental health healing process from the loss of our daughter, sister. Again, it continues to be a tough reality, but I was having a conversation with my wife, my sister, and my niece, and they were discussing the experience of spirits. And as we had the conversation, I had to tell them that that's nothing that I've ever experienced. But to listen to them talk and to be in the room with my wife and to see some of the experiences that she's having, it opened up my mind. Not that I can speak on it from a perspective of me having that experience, but speaking on it from the perspective of now my mind is open that when people tell me that, I can believe that is real. I don't never think I ever just thought that people were crazy if they thought that, but I definitely didn't know any way to connect with that experience. And we were having a very serious conversation, and all of them have had some of those experiences. And so it did open up my mind. I wanted to mention that because, we have to be open to some new things like we've talked about over the last couple of weeks. And then I'm going to just pose a few things in the reading that I believe is the avenue to us to improve our mental health, is that we have to have an open mind of some new things, right? Because that perspective within itself, I had to have my mind open enough to say, you know what, I've never experienced that, but I can kind of relate to how that can happen by watching it happen through my wife, not necessarily it happening through me. I didn't just shut it down. I'm like, man, ain't no way that's possible. Y'all crazy, you whatever. You know what I mean? So I kind of wanted to pose that today. The other aspect, Ebony Simone and T. Farrell, alaikum salam, appreciate y'all coming in. The other thing that I wanted to talk about briefly is my brother's experience while he was in the hospital fighting COVID. He was in the hospital from last Monday. Today's Tuesday. So, no, it was 2 Mondays ago. And he got out of the hospital last Tuesday. But we were having a conversation the other day, and he was explaining what was going on with him while he was in that hospital. And I wanted to talk about this because many of us have experienced a family member, a loved one, or even somebody just that we know, coworker, a colleague, just an associate, whatever, that's been in the hospital dealing with this severe disease. And then a lot of us have seen the post on social media about the black female doctor who died in the hospital, and she just was making posts about how she was being treated, and it was racism and, things that we have as a people dealt with, of course, many, many times on many, many different occasions, not just during this pandemic. It's been happening in all of our lives. But he was trying to keep a positive mind. He typically, like myself, is a person that looks at things from a positive perspective. But he was talking about the perspective of being in his bed some nights, struggling to breathe, right? A person who really is not a sickly person, does a pretty good job of taking care of himself as far as eating habits and trying to stay fit and things of that nature. But he wound up in the hospital. And so he would go to sleep some nights and wake up and they're empty beds. And so he's wrangling in his mind, did that person leave and go home, or did that person die? He was in the same hospital with Tommy Lasorda. So those of you who are, baseball fans or have been baseball fans in the past, he was the manager for the Los Angeles Dodgers for many years. Same hospital. Of course, his family is very wealthy, and they decided that they wanted him to die at home and not in the hospital. So they took him out the hospital. But, I was sitting there listening to my brother, and it was like, man, he called it the worst experience in his life as far as mental health, right? He was going through it because he had confidence that he was going to make it. But how do you stop the negative thoughts? Not only what you've heard all year, I should say all last year, the people that that have died from it, the things you hear, the stories, right? If you're in the hospital yourself, that has to be a pretty tough mental health hurdle to tackle. And, it was very, very eerie to listen to him talk about his experience being that, right? In these days and times, you can't even be in there with your family member. So they have to fight that fight alone. And being on FaceTime or some other type of video chat. And, I was sending them messages about, staying strong every day. But, afterwards, I was like, man, those messages I was sending wasn't nothing compared to the uphill climb that he was dealing with every day in that hospital. So it was just, I thought it was pretty heroic expression, not only making it through it, but coming out. Of course, he's still in his recovery, doing a lot better. But that mentality of being in that place, and I know he had a lot of other experience that he explained that it's too much to go into all that depth, but just suffices to say that experience of being in a hospital, fighting COVID, and being in I would say, the best way that I can formulate it in my mind is a warlike situation. I could only look into the hospital when my mother was in there being checked. Gurneys all up and down the hallways. No rooms were open for them to even triage her. So, the day that it took, I think it was 12, 14 hours. But just imagine being one of those people that can barely breathe or whatever else the infection has done to you and brought you to a place where you have to go in the hospital and you have to go through those type of trials and tribulations. Pretty tough thing. And I think most of us would say from a faith perspective that, God doesn't put you anything. He doesn't put you through anything that you can't overcome. But, sometimes we can be stretched when we think, even if we believe that is true, that can be stretched and you have to grow into the understanding that you do have that strength. I hope I'm making sense. Sister Queen, walaikum salam. Donita Lake, walaikum salam. Sister Christine Crowder, Priscilla Timmons, Daisy Muhammad, walaikum salam to all of you. Thank you for coming in. So for those who are in the book club, you already know some of the things I'm about to read. For those who are not, I pray this inspires you to want to come in. But I forgot one thing. I have been watching the posts on Facebook of people that I know that are taking this vaccine. And I'm sure most of you are hearing the stories and reading the articles. You know, there's a nursing home or an elderly facility in New York where there were 23 deaths after vaccinations, 100 and something people that got sick after the vaccinations. There are 23 people, I think it was in Norway, that died after vaccinations. And in all of these reports, as I'm reading them, I don't see any evidence that you can actually prove that it was the vaccine. But regardless of whether it can be proven whether those deaths are from the vaccine or not, I believe we are seeing the reason why Brother Dr. Akili has said that we have to be careful and we have to ask as many questions, and we might need to wait for a while before we decide to do it, if we ever decide to do it, because this is the type of reality that I was expecting. You know, I'm not trying to make myself out to be anything that I'm not, but I really, because of the history of vaccines, because of this new technology, because of the fact that we haven't had enough time to really look at these things, these are the type of things that I was concerned about, worried about, and I don't think it's anywhere near over. But specifically, there are 18 doctors that I know personally that have gone on Facebook, either said that they got the shot or actually showed themselves getting the shot. One person that is a friend's daughter who just finished medical school, and then 2 healthcare workers. And so I'm watching them, you know, watching their stories. Everybody to date has said that they still feel fine. They don't have any problems. But, you know, to me, that's promoting the vaccine. I've reached out to a few of them, asked them, you know, which one did you get? Did you read the information that the FDA put on the website? And to date, I think, as I said last week, everybody that has responded to me, because some of them aren't even responding, but those who have responded have pretty much talked about a perspective of fear. And this is all included in what we're going to talk about today. As you all saw, the name of today's show is Mental Health Self-Evaluation. You know, it's very important for us to do our own mental health self-evaluation, because as we are going to show in a few minutes in the book, The Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Health, she, in her field of psychology or psychiatry, could put it all together, has talked about the racism in that field. So we don't really have a lot of standards by which we could use to evaluate ourselves. So I just wanted to mention something today, because I think it's going to be extremely important for us to consider some things that may not have been studied in Black people, or there just may not have been enough discussions where we can come up with our own evaluation, as well as our own stable datum to use as a foundation for what we think we should do and how to evaluate and process ourselves. Catherine Muhammad, Walaikum Salam, T. Farrell says, did he not take the alpha interferon treatment? Good question. My brother did not take it. He actually, I think, took it maybe 1 or 2 days, but he didn't get a chance to really get it in his system before he got sick. But my mother had been taking it since March. They both got sick with it, but she didn't stay in the hospital. She was evaluated and released. So the actual answer is no, I don't believe he took it for any period of time. Khalid Muhammad, how you doing, my brother? Walaikum salam. So let's get into this part of the show. I wanted to just read something quickly out of the Bible of this show, the foundation of the show, right? How to Eat to Live. This is book 1, page 88. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad writes, when we get used to eating one meal a day or every 24 hours, we start eating once every 2 days. So I want to stop right there real quickly. For those of us who know about this book, discuss this book, and have heard other people talk about this book, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad never mentions that we have to master eating one meal a day. This is what he says. When we get used to eating one meal a day or every 24 hours, we start eating once every 2 days, which will give to you and me better results than eating one meal a day. Even eating one meal a day and eating the right kind of food and having a pure drink will bring us health and prolonged life of which we would not even dream. You will not be sick if you eat correctly. And let what you drink be pure, that which will not harm the body. Again, you will agree with me that we Americans are a very gluttonous people and that we prepare our own sick bed, hospital bills, and undertaker bills with what we eat and what we drink. And besides this comes a sick mind, and after a sick mind comes death. You just try eating and drinking and living at peace with yourself and others, and you will write me and tell me that these words are true. And I'm mentioning that because, again, when we're talking about mental health and the ability to have a standard for ourselves, we're talking about something new. So we can't continue to keep our minds locked in a system that was given to us or forced on us, because it was never given to us. It was forced upon us, right? And when we start talking about some of the mental health things that I want to mention today and would like you all's feedback, I want to first talk about the words I can't or the words I couldn't. While I'm out here in California, my niece has a 1-year-old, and I'm just, being observant of him, and I'm watching him do things like he is walking pretty good. A child is learning their balance and all the things that they do. So he's falling sometimes and being very careful, and comes to the edge of a curb and will kind of take a couple stutter steps before he steps, or he'll stand there for a while and get his confidence before he steps. But that child is not thinking about I can't. Under no circumstance that he is in is his mind focused on I can't. How many of you have had children? How many of you have been at a swimming pool around your own child or somebody else's child, a niece, nephew, and watched a small child, will jump in that water without an ounce of fear? See you jump in the pool, see other people moving around the pool, and just have the curiosity to be in the pool, and will go get in that pool, right? But for some reason, whatever the reason is, some of us are afraid of water, won't even go near water. And sometimes those are experiences that put fear in us of whatever that is that we're afraid of, right? And so I wanted to mention that because that typically is a word that I hear a lot when I interact with people in general, but especially when we're talking about health. And I believe that it's absolutely relative to mental health that you have to throw I can't. We have to throw, I have to throw I can't, I couldn't out of the vocabulary. I won't, I will not, I do not, I am not going to. Those are possible answers, right? I am not going to take the vaccine. I do not plan on taking the vaccine. I will not allow anybody to give me the vaccine. Those are things that are more putting me in control. But if I start to, I can't, I think that's a different thing. That's a different mentality. And it can be tied into slavery because there were a lot of things that we couldn't do because we weren't allowed to, right? Why? Because of that oppressive right up on you system, right? But we've continued that thought process. A lot of times I will pose things to people. And I remember my first statement, the first time I heard somebody say, man, I haven't eaten in 7 days. I've only been drinking juices. So I said, man, I'd die if I did. I can't do that. But here it is today. I do that on a regular basis, right? And so a lot of times we'll find ourselves murdering that in ourselves if we're open to new experiences. But I think it's a word that we have to destroy amongst ourselves so that we start to grow into our true abilities, right? Charles X. Moore, Hoyle Muhammad, Walaikum Salam, my brothers. Danila Lake says the self-analysis is key to understanding how the biosocial domains impact mental health and overall well-being. Yes, ma'am. For all of you that may not necessarily understand the medical terms used, psychobiosocial. Psycho means mind, bio life, and social is the community that we're around or the community that we're involved in. Some we have the ability to choose and some we don't. Anita, let me know if I'm saying what you are saying correctly. But what I take from her statement, and I think is a powerful statement, is that we have to start evaluating ourselves with what our environment is and stop evaluating ourselves based on an environment or a social construct that's produced by somebody else, right? For instance, we look at the television all the time and we're getting our idea of beauty from the television. If you see some of these people in real life, these are some little people. I think about all the time some of the so-called Hollywood stars that I've seen in my lifetime. And I tower over these people. And of course, these so-called models are very thin. They look anorexic when you see them in real life. That's not the evaluation that I want for myself. Remember when I looked like that as a little boy, but right now I can't use that as my framework for what I need to look like. Just the same as I can't go to the gym and see a guy that's approximately my height and maybe approximately my weight. And I'm looking at his body type and I'm like, oh, I want to look like that. That might be a mistake. So we have to do better at choosing our measuring tools, right? And most of our measuring tools in this world is a European role and we can't fit into it, right? And so I want to read one other thing out of How to Eat to Live. And then we'll continue this mental health conversation, right? So here's the Honorable Elijah Muhammad on page 90 of book 1. If we keep food going into our stomachs only once every 24 hours or 48 hours and do not get the foolish idea that this cannot be done, then we can train our stomachs to eat once a week, and our stomachs will not call for food more than once a week. This has been tried. If we could eat one meal a week, we could live as long as Methuselah, right? Whole new concept. I had never even thought about that. I had heard people talk about who the oldest person in the Bible was, but I had never considered that I would be able to do that until I read this book, How to Eat to Live. That's what made me start to consider, right? Because I remember the first time I read that, I don't think it really registered, but I was like, damn, that's 1,000 years. We can live that long? Damn. And then I started thinking, over the years I've contemplated, well, if a man lived to 969, at what point did he start getting arthritis? Probably ain't no way that he started getting it in 30s, 40s like some of us do, right? How long did he take before he started balding and getting balding patterns like I got? How many years was he before he started getting forgetful? At 969 years, changes the whole landscape of ideas when we think like that, right, brothers and sisters? I pray that you all see where I'm coming from. Sister Queen says, yes, sir, these are 2 words that I will not allow my students to speak. However, I allowed myself to speak it. It's a blessing that this book is making me aware that these word changes are, what happened? Oh, okay. That these word changes are to be flipped in order to keep my frequency in an elevated state. That's right. Because we have to, just with the short number of pages, right? Let's just make the assumption that all of us are reading these books for the first time, right? And if you are, and if we are, then we already just page, I think we're 95 in How to Eat to Live, and we're on page, what are we on here? 76 in the Unapologetic Guide. But they're already talking to us about how powerful this is in order to be in control of the rest, right? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the quote I just finished talking about, if you make your mind up that you're going to eat once a week, your mind tells your stomach what to do, not the other way around, right? It is something that we have to work on, but the power and that frequency that you're talking about is absolutely so important. And it's so important for us to have that type of mentality around that 1-year-old, my nephew that I just finished talking about. So powerful for us to have, and not to use these words around young people when we have influence on young people, right? To sit around talking about, I can't. Then you turn and you tell them you can do everything you want in your world. Well, what you just finished saying is more powerful than what you told them, because they're watching you and being trained by your actions. Hope that makes sense. Catherine Muhammad, you say, yes, sir. We do have to remove I can't from our vocabulary. For me, it's a step-by-step process. When a negative thought I can't comes to mind, I strive to remove it by looking for ways within myself to do what I feel I can't. Absolutely. And that's the point for today right there, brothers and sisters, self-evaluation, right? Because you all can sit and hear me talk every Tuesday, but all of us have to apply. Brother Keeley, Dr. Keeley, even though this is my show, I have to self-improve every day, every moment, every day to keep the positive thoughts, right? I mean, when my brother was in the hospital struggling, it wasn't 100% positive thoughts. I had some concerns about him making it up out of there. I'm not going to voice that to him, of course. I'm not going to say that around his wife and his daughter when we were around here having conversations. No, I'm going to try to stand on the positive. But yes, they were in there. And I had to try to murder him every time. He's going to be all right. He's going to make it. He's strong enough. He has a strong mind. He has a strong will. He's going to do what it takes. He's not going to be in there eating that garbage food up in the hospital. So there were a lot of things that were going in my mind as well. But most importantly, we as individuals have to work on that, right? And that's what I think both of your comments. So thank you both. Bear Squad 1, does things like chewing gum and mints count as food? Lester Muhammad, peace, my brother. Bear Squad, I would say yes, but I will get to that another time, okay? So a couple of things I wanted to read out of this book, right? Because not only is it that we don't want to say the word can't, but we also want to I think the reason why I mentioned early in the show about my sister and my niece and my wife talking about these experiences that they have with spirits is that there are aspects, right, sometimes that we feel insecure. I don't know if I want to say that around anybody. They might think I'm crazy. I don't know if I'm going to mention that. Man, I ain't never heard anybody else talk about that in my circle, whatever the case may be, right? And so I think it's important. I'm going to read a couple of things out of here, and then I want to talk about a couple of concepts and, of course, get your feedback. So here is page 57 on the Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Health. On page 57, she says, when psychologists and other mental health professionals ask about family history and discover that someone in the family suffers from mental or emotional health challenges, they tend not to be surprised. Obviously, not everyone whose family has members with mental health problems will inherit the same types of disorders. Sometimes what people inherit is a vulnerability or predisposition that is triggered by a stressful situation. They have a low tolerance for stress. In the example, your son may have challenges because of a biological predisposition that was triggered, or he may have learned to retreat to his room because of what he saw when his grandfather managed stress with explosive anger. When we say that problems run in families, we are more likely to see psychological problems in individuals when other family members, living or deceased, have such challenges. And so that's very similar to what I have said to you all over the times, right? We don't have genetic disposition to medical problems. Well, I take that back. We don't have a genetic predetermination of a medical problem, but we could have a genetic predisposition, right? Well, you look at me and my head and these bald spots. My brother has a full head of hair. My father had head like mine with bald spots, but my mother still has a full head of hair. You see what I'm saying? So yes, there is some genetic reality to this. But if I had never eaten soy like I did for so many years, I don't believe I would have this now. I know it was part of it because a lot of the foods that I was eating on a regular basis had soy before I really learned from How to Eat to Live how bad soy was. Right? I never was a big soy eater, but I was a big junk food eater, and dang near everything that I ate had soy in it. And so it's a very similar thing. We see some people say, well, my mama was, she went to the hospital. She had a nervous breakdown, and my auntie had a nervous breakdown. So I don't know if I can handle it. I might have one too. Not if you do the type of things that we're discussing, and not if you do the type of things that we're talking about in this book, right? And also, we have to discuss the depression and the anxiety that many of us have that comes directly out of a system That was never meant for us. So here's the next quote while some of you respond to that. So on page 74, she mentions, can you even imagine what it would look like to truly be free? This is the second to last paragraph, just in case you're following along. Can you even imagine what it would look like to truly be free? To not have to make any decisions for yourself or your family under the veil of race? I don't think we have any idea what that is to live like, right? I am not sure that I can. The recent rash of African American deaths at the hands of law enforcement officials has a lasting and profound effect on the individual and collective Black psyche, primarily because the kind of injustice resulting from police brutality and state-sanctioned violence is not new. Our community has suffered this kind of treatment for a very long time. I know for sure, and I would like to hear from you all. I can't drive down any state, any city, any town that I go through. I see police, I don't become fearful, but I automatically have something that turns on in me like, I wonder if something's about to go down. I wonder if these people are about to turn and pull behind me, because it's happened very recently to me where I was pulled over for no reason. Police officers telling me that they smell marijuana in my car, and I haven't smoked marijuana for years and know there's none in this car. I know it for a fact, but you pull me over and you tell me that. So immediately him asking me that question, I feel like my life is on the line at that point. Remember the last day it happened, January 2017. When I got out the car and they put me on the side, I said, I am not dying today. So imagine that, right? Can you imagine what she said? Can you make any decisions for your life or your family under the veil of race? I mean, so we don't have to make it under the veil of race. Can you imagine if we didn't have to make the type of decisions that we make with this racism all the time, and wondering if we're going to make it home, wondering if our son or daughter is going to make it home and they're 17, 18, 19, and we know what we've been through. So that cycle, again, can produce mental health issues. If you all remember my friend Streeter on The Greatest Love Story Ever Told, he talked about the fact that he and his wife kind of had a subconscious thing where they couldn't go to sleep until they heard the door close and knew it was him. And I was a grown man. And matter of fact, I don't believe it was but a few years ago that my mother made that comment to me. She said, do you know that I couldn't even go to sleep many nights until I knew you and your brother were in the house? And it was a very eerie feeling that came over me. It was kind of like, this weight came off of me or over me. I don't know which one it was. It was just a very eerie feeling. I was like, damn, I never even took in consideration all those nights I was out drinking, partying, smoking, getting high, doing crazy stuff. I remember being pulled over by police and being accused of things that I didn't do. What's the difference between what happened to Philando Castile and all of our young brothers across the country? Why didn't that happen to me? But those type of experiences make us think about our children in that way, right? I have a 17-year-old and a 22-year-old now, 21-year-old and a 17-year-old. And I'm concerned about them all the time, about when they're driving and what could cause some attention to them. And while I'm on that subject, I think a movie I watched the other night, y'all. If you get a chance to watch American Son, it has, man, I can't think of her name. But anyway, it's on Netflix, American Son. I'm not going to tell anything else you all have. If you've heard of it, let me know. But I'm not going to tell you. Go check it out because it's specifically about that subject that I just brought up, about a child being in a car and being pulled over by police, right? And it's very difficult for us as Black people to have peace in this society. And so we'll get further into that a little while. Kerry Washington. That's right. Kerry Washington. I don't remember the guy's name in it, but I thought it was a very intriguing conversation. It brought up a lot of things, of course, that we're all concerned of, especially those of us who have driving age, or just children that are growing and becoming more mature and want to go out and do things that they want to do. They don't understand the perspective of a parent and that worry, right? But I thought it was an excellent movie from what it made me think about. So thank you all. Yes. Joshua Stoney, peace to you, my brother. Thank you for coming in. So next quote, page 75, last paragraph. The reality is that mental health disciplines have the capacity to improve psychological fortitude for Black people, but it has to be a very intentional process, which is what I believe this book is doing, right? This is intentionally trying to support our Black people's psychological fortitude. And unfortunately, most of us have never had any exposure to anything that was trying to benefit our psychological fortitude. It takes a Black person to do that, because white people can't think from this perspective. And I hope that if anybody's listening, you're not saying that this is a Dr. Keeley saying that, or it's a Nation of Islam thing. No, this sister's not in the Nation of Islam. It's just an actual fact of living in America, right? So I'm going to read that again. The reality is that mental health disciplines have the capacity to improve psychological fortitude for Black people, but it has to be a very intentional process. Instead, institutions are seemingly stacked against the Black community. The discipline of psychology is made better with racial and ethnic diversity. But since efforts to address the psychology of a people who have been systemically subjected to inhumane treatment are relatively non-existent. After all, psychology is a field of study that provided evidence that Black people are inferior to white people. In more contemporary times, there are those of us who are dedicated to addressing research and developing cultural informed therapy, but we do so in spite of and not because of the systems that undermine our efforts at just about every turn. I can 1000% agree that that's the same reality that I've had in my experience, 26 years as of this month in the medical field, right? This being a part of the medical field, but it's a different extension, and she's pretty much co-signing that reality. We cannot anticipate that such a system will either dissolve suddenly or operate in a way that is benevolent towards Black people. While there are many white individuals who have worked tirelessly to solve the problem of inequity, the system is rigged. Mental health disciplines are not a part of the solution when they systemically withhold pieces of the mental health puzzle for undeserved people. So as long as we have a system that has a hospital, an urgent care center, a nice, beautiful office building, and then another building over here that says for the underserved. That's what she's saying from a health perspective, right? If you take the mental health and put it in the regular health, right? Foster blind spots by demeaning research that addresses unique mental health concerns. Again, taking that, put it in the medical field. How much money is put in sickle cell anemia? How much, since it's so-called a disease that's more in Black men, how much money is put into prostate research? It's a spit in the ocean compared to what they do for diseases like Tay-Sachs disease, for things like cystic fibrosis, which are things that much more commonly happen in white people. Fail to admit ethnically diverse students in the most competitive doctoral programs, right? We still to this day, as of 2021, the studies out of white institutions will say that Black doctors are taking care of Black people the most. Asian doctors are taking care of Asians the most. White doctors are taking care of white people the most. Mexicans are taking more of Mexicans. That's just the reality. Culturally, it's the reality. There are very few examples that are outside of that, right? And then lastly, permit diversity day in graduate classrooms rather than integrating diversity throughout education and training. Because these are part of the fabric of research and training, the community will have to rely on itself for real change. And I'm going to say that again. Because these are parts of the because these are part of the fabric of research and training, the community will have to rely on itself for change, for real change. So she's talking to us as the Black community, which is what we say in general, right? Is that we are not going to get help from somebody else. We got a new president coming in, but I would say that nothing is going to change for us. So we shall see, right? But if we don't do something for ourselves, I don't see what we'll be doing, or there'll be somebody having a conversation like this in another 15, 20, 50, 100, 50 years from now if we don't do something different, right? Ebony Moan says, biracial son. Yes, ma'am. Laroya, walaikum salam, ma'am. Catherine Muhammad, I told my children while raising them that diseases are not hereditary. It's our way of living that makes diseases run in the family. We have to break the cycles we were raised under. Knowledge and understanding what we learn is paramount. Absolutely. Absolutely, my sister. I tell people all the time that as I sit here and I speak with you, 40 and above people in my family, I believe there are one or two of us, maybe three, that don't have any medical problems. And those three people that don't have the medical problems are the ones that have tried to work their hardest to take care of their health, right? Just an actual fact. Medical problems don't run genetically because our gene pool really comes directly from the creator himself. So our gene pool is perfect. That's why your sperm was acting perfectly before you knew anything about it. And that's why you were pregnant, sisters, before you knew anything about it. That's a perfect system that continues to try to work perfectly, even in our ignorance and our debauchery and all of the things we do to try to destroy this body, right? And so, again, going back to our mental health capacity, it has to be a self-evaluation because there are no standards out there for our mental health. It has to be a daily reality that we build. And then I would say that this is a good book to rely on, right? Because the person on the front, Naeem Akbar, he's written some wonderful things to promote us being more positive within ourselves. He's promoted this reality that we're talking about. But I don't necessarily know if I have had, as of on page 76 that we're reading today, a specific mental health, talking about the way that we are evaluated by a system and then the things that we can do to improve our psychological fortitude, right? And so when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad talks about these things that make us think something new, right? A lot of times when we were young, as children, you get something new and it sparks your interest and it makes you, right? And it's the same way with us as adults. We didn't lose that. We get exposed to something and it increases your energy and increases excitement and makes you want to be a part of it. And so I'm praying that that's what this book club is doing for us. I know that's what it's doing for me. It's making me evaluate myself every day. What did I say? How did I say it to my wife, right? I want to be more kind, gentle, and good to her, whether I'm upset, frustrated, or happy. I still want to treat her the way she should be treated, right? I didn't see my father necessarily teach me anything like that as a young boy coming up. I saw my father as a man's man. He was tough. He was, hardcore. He was disciplinarian, all those things that, we were trained that a man should be. But I wished that he had showed me how to be more gentle and kind by being that way to my mother, right? And so I have to learn that process. I have to work that process in myself because I'm not interested in being otherwise. I don't want to be the way that I tend to be sometimes, and I'm not going to get into all that, but just understand that my mental health evaluation I try to do every day. You know what I mean? I try to completely eliminate Kent. I try to completely eliminate negativity. When something negative comes in my mind, I try to find something else or somewhere else to go to combat that negative thought. As I said before, I am trying so far, not trying, I am in 2021 documenting the ideas that I have that may bring me some stress, such as in the process of, you know, getting housing, right, or improving the housing, in the process of getting my book done, and because it's done, but I need to take care of a few things to actually publish it, growing in practice and doing things more efficiently. You know what I mean? So if those are the things that are on our mind, you have different ones. But if that's on my mind, what am I doing about it every day? Right? Or if it's not every day, can I do something about it once a week? If it's my business, I probably have to do something about it every week. If it's something else, you might be able to address it once a week. But these things, just by addressing, sometimes it's just sitting down and thinking about this particular subject for a while. Or if it's something else that has to be done, make a call once or twice a week, or do whatever it is, but it's slow. You're not going to accomplish it all in one day, right? But if we have a stressful life, or if we have things that are stressing us, a lot of times just doing a little bit towards that problem helps ease that stress off of us, and kind of makes it feel like it's not, right? Make that burden light, right? Ebony Simone said, yes, need that book, sir. Which book are you talking about? Let me know. Chip away at it. Consistency is a key. Absolutely. That's the point right there, right? You're not going to take a big old rock. Thinking about Martin Luther King Day yesterday. The last time I was in DC, I went to see his monument, right? And I looked at that thing and I was like, man, wonder how long it took to make that, right? Because, I mean, it stands, I don't know how high it is, very high, right? I stood up next to it, looked like a little ant compared to it. But the point is that somebody had to chip that out of that big stone that it came from, right? And if we just look at life like that, then I think that we have a much better ability to produce something better for the next generation. Why? Because I don't plan on dying at 80 or 90, right? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that a man and a woman learns how to become a man and a woman at 75. Well, damn, we need to try to practice being a man or a woman. Just go take some time, meaning that you got to at least plan on living to 100 something, right? If I want to take what I learned as being a man or a woman and be able to apply it, and especially apply it to another generation. So that's just the way I think, brothers and sisters. I pray that I am attempting and striving to be a good example of how to eat to live. And I also pray that I'm working and practicing and striving on having excellent mental health, where the typical things that we see happen, right? As I watch older people and watch my mother and watched my father and their deterioration, I know that that's coming one day, but I pray that that's 100 years from now or more, that process starts to happen. And imagine if my son and my daughter at 17 and 21 are watching me and potentially think that way as well, then maybe it'll be another 100 past me for them. But if we're not even thinking like that, what are we producing for our young people? And so that's really what I wanted to have a conversation with. I think that these books have just been blowing me away. I mean, it's amazing because as we are reading How to Eat to Live, this is my 17th or 18th time reading How to Eat to Live, book one. When we do book two, it will be my 13th time reading book two. And every single time I read it, it's like, man, when did he put this in here? When did he slide this page in my book? And I didn't even know about it, right? I've had this book for a minute, but he slid some pages in here. I got to go back and look at how many pages in this book. But it's amazing because every time I read it, it's just like it's like there's new things. And I'm also so thankful that we're reading at the slow pace that we're reading, because, you know, sometimes when we try to read a book, like I'll speak for myself, if I say I'm going to read this book, but I read it, you know, on the way to sleep at night, you read a couple of paragraphs and you bobbing and weaving and you're like, man, I don't put this bookmarking it and start reading tomorrow. I'm probably not conscious enough to really get what was there, but then maybe the next time I read it, that stands out to me because I was so not in tune and alert to read it the first time, right? So I'm sure that some of that is the reason why sometimes you read a book and it's like something new, but then other times I think it's experience, right? As we experience more, as we have more aspects of whatever we're reading happen in life, then sometimes you can look at things a little differently. So these readings are going great. And the potential, I think, when we read books like this is just, it's just immeasurable, right? There's no limit to what we can do because these books are helping us take off that veil of white supremacy that has been on us from any perspective in American society. You got to be inundated with it, right? And even if you go to other countries, they are inundated with it as well because the whole world has been colonized by the white supremacist mind. So I'm thankful that we're reading it. I'm thankful that my mind is being open, and I do believe that we're going to continue getting stronger and better as we move through January and February. So thank you all who are reading with us, and thank you all for coming to have this discussion. Like Sister Leroy says, that's a great idea. The documentation of the thought process, particularly those things that cause emotional stress, helps a lot. Yes, absolutely, sister. It allows us to put the thought in a conscious place, right? Because if you look at a person, right, like I do this a lot. I notice myself sometimes I'm maybe sitting, thinking, or doing something, and my leg is just tapping. Like, what the hell is going on with me? Try to tap in. What was my mind on? What was I thinking about? What was I worried about? What was going on in me? You see what I mean? So when I'm sitting there and my foot is just tapping, it's subconscious. But when I stop myself and I say, hey, what am I thinking about? What's going on with me right now? I'm trying to take it from the subconscious and put it into my conscious. And now I can do something about it, right? When you allow that subconscious to work, you might find yourself with a hand in a bag of chips or on something else crunchy or something creamy or something salty or something bready, right? We have very scientific enemies. And so they've put all of these different snack foods out here for us to go to when that subconscious mind is there, a soda or some chocolate ice cream, whatever the case is, that helps a person have a little bit of rise in that subconscious depression. But when we start trying to make it, what's going on with me? Why did I just pull over and grab those bag of chips in the middle of going home? What's on my mind? And so now you try to pull yourself out of that subconscious life, right? Get in your car and you start driving. Next thing you're at work and you come to realization like, damn, I don't remember which way did I go? It's because you drive the same way so often, it's not even conscious anymore. It's a subconscious drive. But what about taking a left turn instead of that right turn? Yeah, it might add a minute, but it frees your mind and puts you back in control. I hope that makes sense, brothers and sisters. We have to do all these things in our everyday life so that we can get back in control and then stay in control and don't allow the subconscious reality of this world put us back in that box, because that's what TV does. That's what billboards do. That's what having messages and commercials and ads come up on social media. That's what it does. It puts you back in a subconscious mind, and we have to take that control back. So thank you, sister. Ebony Simone says, speaking to myself, your book. Oh, praise be to Allah. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Brenda Lynn Muhammad, we keep expecting a mentally ill world to help us heal mentally. Come on, sister. I've never heard it being said better than that. But if you see somebody doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result, you can damn sure call them crazy, right? And I'm certainly not saying crazy in a putting demeaning perspective, but all of us are crazy to some degree. And I pray that that this book club is a way that we start to share things like we're doing and help bring ourselves out of it, right? Brenda Lynn says, makes lots of sense. We thank Allah. Praise be to Allah. So, brothers and sisters, that's pretty much it, what I had for today. I wanted to just start with those. I take that back. Here's what I wanted to mention. on The Greatest Love Story Ever. If you all haven't listened to that, please go back on YouTube or Facebook and check out The Greatest Love Story Ever. One of my friends, Keith, was talking about the fact that he got this telephone call and something in him told him to answer it. And then something told him something else when he talked to his best friend's wife. And what I wanted to say before I leave today is that every single one of us have to do our best to trust that inner voice. Doesn't make a difference what you call it. You can call it the God inside. You can call it the God talking to you. It is a great source of guidance that we all have to grow more in tune with, and we have to respect, honor, and cherish it more and listen to it, right? I, as a physician, have had multiple women that have been raped and or molested by men come to me and confide in me their story. Some of these stories I was told, don't ever mention this to anybody. So I have to live with it for the rest of my life. They told me I could use the story to help people, but I could never tell their name and say that they told the story. So I have to hold that for the rest of my life. But the thing that I learned from every one of them is that every single one of them got a warning and they didn't listen to it. I remember very specifically this one sister was telling me, and I can't think of her name right now, but she wrote a book about women and their experiences and paying attention to that inner voice, because she was, I believe she was with two of her friends, and she was going to go, to some guy's apartment. So she was leaving these friends that she had to go with this other person. When she got down to the steps of her place and saw the guy coming to either pick her up, I think he was walking and they were going to walk somewhere, she got this feeling inside that, oh, something's wrong. I shouldn't go. And she said she was being paranoid. She called herself tripping, went and got raped. Another situation where a young lady was telling me a story about going to this guy's apartment. It was on a college campus. She got to the door, and as she was knocking, she got the feeling something is wrong. I shouldn't go in here. Went in anyway, and he didn't accomplish the rape, but he tried to rape her. So I'm not going to go into a lot of that. We're trying to have a positive show, right? But I mentioned that because I've never seen people talk so fervently and so strong about listening to that inner voice. And so I would like for all of us to work on that. I'm going to work on that, right? Rely on that 1,000%, especially you young ladies, when you're out here and you start getting this inner warning and you start thinking that you're tripping or you are being paranoid or you just not thinking right or whatever the case may be. No, you are thinking 1,000% right. Trust it. Trust it 1,000%. Get away and go about your business. And if you have that feeling around that person again, then you know you don't need to be around that person. Sometimes it can be the environment, but that's the truth. That voice that's coming from the inside, that warning that comes from the inside of you is the truth, brothers and sisters. And when it comes to our mental health, there's a lot that we have to work on, but I think that's primary. And that will get you out of so many situations, right? Many of us have said things like, oh man, I knew I should have took a right. Didn't listen to the inner voice, but we can start with the little things, right? Hoyo Muhammad, great show, learned a lot. Thank you, my brother. I appreciate you all coming, always coming and supporting. That's right. Inner voice, 100, don't kill it. That's right. And that, honestly, Catherine Mama says, thank you, sir. I will check out The Greatest Love Story Ever Told. Yes, please check that out. I would love to hear any and all of you, your feedback on that show, because it was very, 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 very powerful to me. But brother Hoyle, the point that you make using that word kill, yeah. The minister teaches us, or he teaches us by asking us a question. Can you murder the messenger of God? And every time you're in a situation where you're about to do something and you know you shouldn't do it, and you just murdered the messenger of God, because it does sit right up in this dome, in that kingdom, right? And so when we don't listen to it, we are killing it. I thank you for mentioning it that way, brother. You reminded me of that. The minister said, Deborah McLeod. As we stay in prayer, fast, submit to Allah, and the process of purification helps that inner voice get clear and clear. Boy, 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 are you telling the truth? You know, I tell this story a lot. When I'm eating correctly, when I'm eating one meal every other day, and when I'm fasting like I should, I can think about people, boom, they call on the phone. Think about people, they're walking the door. It's the same reality. You know what I mean? We have to expect so much more because we have been dampened by the society. We have such great capabilities and abilities that tend to show themselves while we're eating correctly and fasting. Thank you, Deborah McLeod. Wonderful point. Catherine Muhammad, warning, as an older adolescent or adult, I understand that, but what about a small child baby about 2 years old or younger? I mean, I think it's exactly the same, my sister. And I tell the story, I was talking to my niece the other day. I remember when my daughter was small enough where I was carrying her. We went to my aunt's house out here in California. We had, I think rode a train or something out here, just a little family vacation. And I was holding my daughter, and she was just, hugging everybody. I'll let her go. She would go hug them, and then she would come back to me. I walked up to my aunt, and my daughter would not let go of me. And so my aunt said, "Oh, girl, stop acting all funny and come to me." I said, "No, we're going to respect that. No. If she doesn't want to go, I don't know the reason, but I'm going to respect that." A lot of my family members were tripping on me about that. Like, just a lot of negativity, but I didn't care. I respected my children enough to know that when they acted like they were afraid of something, or they act like there was something about this person that they didn't want to be around, I respected it. And I don't know if I promoted that in them, but I pray that I did, because I already knew and already am full. My family is full of children being molested. I wouldn't go on with that. I can't say it was my aunt. That's not the point. But I wasn't going to let my children go somewhere where they didn't feel comfortable, because I know what I'm going to do if you do that to my child. You take my child off like that, I'm going to jail. But I have a smile on my face. So my point is that, sister, I actually do believe that there are signs and ways that we can promote that in everybody. So let me know if that's what you are referring to, because I do believe that children have it. And I believe that we disrespect it in them just like we disrespect it in ourselves. But the point is that as adults, right, we're destroying it in them. Like my brother said, we're killing it, but we're killing it in them, right? Another example is that my 1-year-old nephew that I was talking about. When my wife, my niece, and my niece, and my sister were having a conversation about those spirits and those auras that sometimes we feel, I watched my nephew. He's a little over a year old, and I know there was something going on with him. My wife and I both said it. I was like, man, what is he responding? It's like he was responding. It was like he was connected with something in the room. There was nobody there but me and her. But I know it was something other than us that was getting his attention. I can't describe it. I can't explain it. Again, it's never happened to me, but I know what I saw in that boy. And so I pray that I'm respecting it in my young people, because I pray that I never teach anybody nor disrespect anybody when they have that reality, right? And the more we embrace that, the more we love on that reality, when a child experiences that, the stronger they're going to develop the trust in that, right? Sister Roy, that was a very touching and heart-wrenching show. May Allah continue to bless your friends from the greatest love story ever told. Thank you, sister. Yeah, that was I'm surprised I didn't break down and drop a few tears during that show, but yeah, those are my brothers right there. Ebony Simone says, eating to live is key to our growth and development. Absolutely. Children and animals can detect bad spirits. That's right, Brother Hoyle. Yeah, that's why if you all saw the little picture on the commercial for today, there were two people looking at each other and smiling, but they had, food in those containers that they were holding, bags that they were holding. because I do believe that everything that we're discussing today about mental health can only be manifested to its greatest ability if we have the correct foods, right? Excuse me. And I think everybody would agree that that makes sense. If you're trying to improve your mental health, but you're out here eating food that is genetically modified and got all kind of garbage in it, and somebody else made it, you don't have any idea what's in it, that can't take your abilities to the greatest ability, right? Capability can't take your ability to its greatest capability when you're eating like that. So yes, ma'am, absolutely. How to Eat to Live and the mental health guide going together, I think, is an absolute blessing for all of us that are reading and having these conversations. Catherine Mama, yes, sir, understood. I do agree. Unfortunately, some children have silly parents who don't have sense enough to protect them, and many of us grew up in those kinds of households. Thank Allah for the teachers. Absolutely, man. And I love my father. I lost him in 2017, but I love my father because I know a lot of what I am is because of him, right? A lot of what I am is from my mother as well. But my father was the type of man that thought certain things were disrespectful. You know what I mean? Because I know there were some times in my life where he made me, and he did. I don't think he ever put me in a situation where something could have happened to me. But I do believe my father did not support that aspect. If there was something that I didn't want to be around, or a person that I just had, whatever, I remember sometimes feeling like, nah, I don't want to be around that person. And he would say, man, you're not going to embarrass me. You're not going to do such around my friends. Like, damn, man, I'm your damn son. And so, some of those old ideas, some of those things that we were trained to believe, and some of those things that we came to conclusions were the right way that we were being trained, they were wrong. And I'm not afraid to say that, you know what I'm saying? Because I did the same thing to my children. I went into parenthood with a lot of stupidity because of the things that happened to me. I made an emotional decision to do something totally different. I should have gone and sat down with somebody and talked to them. I should have read some books. I should have had a conversation with somebody that I thought was doing a good job raising their children, rather than coming to this emotional opposite end of the spectrum because of what was done to me, right? And so I pray that these type of shows, and those of you who are making some of these great comments, will help somebody make a different choice. We have the ability to go find information. And that's why I keep promoting the Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Health. This should be a Bible in Black people's houses. The same way How to Eat to Live should be in all Black people's houses, all people's houses. But those of us that are struggling and suffering under this racist system, we have to have something to get us up out of that. And I think that those two books that I just mentioned, the reason why we started off with those in January and February, is because it's going to help us see that this can catapult us into another reality. So let's keep reading, let's keep studying, and let's keep growing. All right. Last thing before we get out of here today, brothers and sisters, I just wanted you to see a little something I didn't have time to go into last time because we were in a little hurry. But here is an article that came from a Cuban news source that's talking about interferon, right? So I'm just going to read parts of it real quick. Nalcefferone is a formulation of recombinant interferon alpha 2b human for nasal administration that, thanks to the immune modulating antiviral properties of interferon alpha, provides protection against the virus. That's the part I want us to keep thinking on, protection against the virus, right? According to findings from research by the Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology, to contribute to the control of COVID-19, the passage of interferon to the bloodstream was detected, with maximum concentration levels observed 30 to 45 minutes after nasal administration, producing increased antiviral and innate immune response markers in the oropharyngeal mucous membrane and peripheral blood lymphocytes. Specialists are confident it disrupts reproduction of the virus and impacts the extent of colonies present in the body. It also strengthens the immune system and guarantees that if a person is infected, he or she will not develop severe symptoms, experts explain. So I just wanted to read that, brothers and sisters, because Again, this is not about any money thing, but it is about the experience I just had with my brother and my mother. My mother being 85, my brother being 50. He had a pretty hard trial, and hers was a lot lighter. And my conclusion, after taking everything in consideration, is that it was the supplement that helped her. Right. And again, this is not about money, but this is about giving you information. If you are not confident with your activities of eating correctly, eating the vitamin D rich foods, the vitamin C rich foods, drinking water and hydrating, getting enough rest, getting out there and getting some of that good sunshine as often as possible. If you're not confident with those things, I'm just saying that this has proven to me that it could add to your confidence in making it through these times that we live in. So just a final thought, because after what my brother went through, I don't wish that on anybody. And the better you take care of yourself, it's been proven to take care of any of these man-altered viruses that are in our environment. And lastly, I'll leave you all with this, which I think is a beautiful mental health positive statement, right? How can a human being go into a laboratory and do anything to make what God made better? Ask the question again. How can humans go into a laboratory, anywhere on the planet Earth, and produce something that can benefit you better than what God gave you? Your immune system is the best thing on the planet Earth. You have to learn how to take care of it well. When we're talking about how to eat to live, and we're talking about having mental or that psychological fortitude, we're talking about taking your immune system to a whole nother capability. Okay, brothers and sisters. So I thank you all for coming in. Brenda Muhammad says, absolutely love the books. I agree, my sister. Priscilla B says, thanks for the great session. I needed to hear that. Praise be to Allah. Ebony Simone, what is a supplement? Where can we get it? Reach out to me. My information's down at the bottom. It's about to scroll back. You can, go to the website, touch base with me. You can go to the telephone number and send me a text or give me a call. Okay. Assalamu alaikum, dear family. Malik Sincere, thank you for coming in. So thank you, brothers and sisters, for coming and spending some time. You all just don't know how your comments at the end of a show like this just makes me feel, because this show is inspired by our reading. You know what I mean? And this whole month of shows is inspired by these two books. And so I'm glad you all are getting something out of it. I'm glad you're enjoying them. And if the show touched you like it did, that just really brings me a lot of joy, blessings, and benefit. Okay. So thank you all. I appreciate you coming. I appreciate the support. And if you're not in the book club, jump on the Ultimate Wellness Group book club and jump in and just catch up with us. Okay. And let's continue having these great conversations. Thank you for your time today. Have a wonderful, the rest of your day. I pray that you continue to work hard on your health, because in a time like we're living in, it's not easy to have good health, mental or physical. So please keep working hard on your health. And I pray that you apply the news that you can use that you received today. All right. Y'all have a wonderful rest of your day and a wonderful rest of your week. Until next week, you have a wonderful, wonderful time at working hard on your health. Peace.